The Bellagio is one of the most profitable buildings on the Las Vegas Strip. It is also a building that the company running it does not own. MGM built this place. MGM operates this place. And every year, MGM writes a rent check of roughly $250 million to a New York private equity firm for the privilege of running its own crown jewel. Meanwhile, the most famous thing at the Bellagio fountains, is completely free. It generates precisely zero direct revenue, and it might be the smartest investment ever made in this city. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what the Bellagio cost to create, where its money actually comes from, why MGM sold the floor under its own feet on purpose, and why the single most valuable thing this resort ever built is the thing it gives away for nothing. Start with what it took to create. In late 1992, Steve Wynn paid $75 million for the Dunes, an aging casino on 77 acres in the dead center of the Strip. A year later, he blew it up. The implosion itself was staged as a show, broadcast, choreographed, watched by thousands, which tells you everything about how Wynn thought. Even the demolition had to sell tickets to the future. Construction started in November of 1995, and Wynn refused to hurry it. The design process alone ran more than 2 years before a shovel hit the ground, and when costs kept climbing, partly from new features being added, partly from a shortage of skilled construction workers driving up labor prices, Wynn didn't cut. He kept adding. The budget was projected at $1.3 billion. It finished at $1.6 billion, the most expensive resort ever built anywhere on Earth at that moment. And Wynn wasn't done spending. He hung roughly $300 million of his own fine art collection on the walls, Van Gogh, Monet, Picasso, inside a casino. The opening night party in October 1998 reportedly cost another $88 million, which means the party alone cost more than entire regional casinos cost to build. To put $1.6 billion in perspective, that was more than the annual budget of some small countries at the time, spent on one building on one corner in one desert city. The bet was simple and enormous. That luxury itself could be the product, and gambling would just be something that happened inside it. But here's the thing about that $1.6 billion. It was only the down payment. Because what Wynn actually built was not a hotel, it was a small city that happens to have a front desk. Today, the Bellagio has 3,933 rooms. It opened with 3,025. An entire second tower was added later because the first one wasn't enough. The gaming floor covers about 155,000 square feet. There's another 94,000 square feet of retail and around 200,000 square feet of meeting and ballroom space, which means the conference facilities alone are bigger than the casino. Thousands of people work inside this one address, across restaurants, theaters, a botanical conservatory, an art gallery, a pool complex, and a surveillance operation watching all of it around the clock. Even the lobby ceiling is an asset. 2,000 hand-blown glass flowers by the artist Dale Chihuly, hanging over the front desk, one of the most photographed ceilings in the world, installed as decoration above the line where people wait to check in. And somewhere inside the building, according to industry reporting, sits more than $150 million in physical cash at all times, because a casino that can't pay a jackpot instantly isn't a casino. Every one of those numbers is a cost before it's anything else. Every room has to be cleaned, every square foot cooled through a desert summer, every dollar of that cash vault insured and guarded. A city this size only makes sense if the money coming in is even bigger. So, where does the money actually come from? Because the honest answer is not where you think. Here's the number that breaks people's brains about modern Las Vegas. On today's Strip, gambling is no longer the main business. Industry-wide, only around a third of a major Strip resort's revenue comes from the casino floor. The other 2/3 comes from everything wrapped around it: rooms, restaurants, shows, conventions, retail. And the Bellagio is the property that proved this model could work at the highest level. Think about what this building sells that has nothing to do with cards or dice. Nearly 4,000 rooms, where the ones facing the lake command a premium precisely because of the view, the same view the sidewalk gets for free, sold nightly at luxury rates. A Cirque du Soleil show, that has been filling a custom-built theater since opening night in 1998. More than a quarter century of nearly nightly sold-out performances in the same room. Restaurants where the tables facing the fountains are the hardest reservations in the building. A conservatory that rotates its entire display 5 times a year, using upward of 10,000 plants per installation, drawing tens of thousands of visitors a day, who pay nothing to enter and then walk directly past the casino floor to leave. And 200,000 square feet of convention space that fills the rooms midweek when tourists thin out and business travelers on expense accounts take their place. Before the pandemic, this single property was generating more than $400 million a year in operating income, the best performing resort in MGM's entire Las Vegas portfolio. The casino makes money, absolutely. But the Bellagio's real product is the Bellagio. And nothing proves that like the strangest line item in the whole operation, the most famous thing this resort ever built, and it charges nothing for it. The fountains cost around $40 million to build, and some estimates run closer to $50. The original budget was under $5 million. The number exploded because Wynn kept adding to it. He hired Wet Design, a firm founded by former Disney Imagineers, and what they delivered is genuinely absurd when you list it plainly. An 8.5-acre man-made lake holding 22 million gallons of water, 1,214 individual nozzles, nearly 4,800 lights, jets that fire water 460 feet into the air using compressed air at up to 500 pounds per square inch, higher than the Statue of Liberty, from a lake in the middle of a desert. The water, by the way, isn't drinking water. It comes from an underground well that used to irrigate the golf course of the old dunes, the casino Wynn imploded. The old casino is literally watering the new one. Running this reportedly costs in the neighborhood of $10,000 a day, with a full-time crew, every one of them scuba certified, filtering 5 million gallons daily. And the show is free. Every 15 to 30 minutes, every single day. So why build a $40 million machine that makes nothing? Because it makes everything else. The fountains stop foot traffic on the busiest sidewalk in America and point every camera at the Bellagio's front door. The Lakeview rooms upstairs charge a premium for it. The restaurants around it sell it with dinner. And at one point, CNBC reported, you could even buy control of the fountains for a night. Pick the song, press the button yourself, as a VIP package priced at $250,000. The fountains aren't a fountain. They're the most expensive billboard ever built. And the product they advertise is standing right behind them. Do the comparison. A Super Bowl ad buys you 30 seconds once a year. The fountains run up to 15 shows a night, every night, in front of the largest pedestrian audience in the country, and they've been doing it since 1998. Amortize $40 million over nearly 3 decades of that, and the fountains may be the cheapest customer acquisition in the history of hospitality, disguised as the most extravagant thing in it. So the machine works. The city-sized building, the 2/3 non-gaming engine, the free show funneling the world through the front door, which is exactly what makes what happened in 2019 so strange. In October 2019, MGM announced it was selling the Bellagio. Not closing it, not rebranding it, selling the actual building, the land, the lake, all 77 acres, to a joint venture led by Blackstone, the New York private equity giant. The price, $4.25 billion, which one veteran Las Vegas broker called the largest single trade in the history of the Strip. The deal closed in about a month. Blackstone's real estate trust took 95%. MGM kept 5%. And then MGM signed a lease to rent its own crown jewel back. The starting rent, $245 million a year on an initial 30-year term, with the rent escalating 2% every year for the first decade, which means the check gets bigger annually, and by now sits well north of where it started. And here's the detail most people miss. It's what's called a triple net lease. That means MGM doesn't just pay rent. MGM also pays the property taxes on a building it doesn't own, the insurance on a building it doesn't own, the maintenance, and every dollar of capital improvement on a building it doesn't own. If the roof needs replacing, the tenant pays. Blackstone's job, contractually, is to receive $250 million a year and do approximately nothing. On paper, that sounds like MGM got fleeced. It did not. And understanding why is understanding what a casino company actually is now. Look at it from MGM's side first. In 2018, the Bellagio's earnings were nearly double the rent it agreed to pay. So MGM handed over the deed, collected over $4 billion in cash, and kept the profit machine, the brand, the operations, and everything the property earns above the rent line. It announced the sale of Circus Circus for another $825 million the same week, and used the pile to pay down debt, buy back stock, and chase new projects. The strategy has a name: asset light. Own the brand, operate the business, let someone else own the dirt. And MGM liked the trade so much that its CEO said within weeks that the flagship MGM Grand would follow the same model. It wasn't one deal, it was the blueprint for how the entire strip now works, where the names on the buildings and the names on the deeds are increasingly two different lists. Now look at Blackstone's side. It paid about 17 times the annual rent for one of the most famous buildings on Earth, with a credit-worthy tenant locked in for 30 years, paying every expense, with the rent rising automatically. Analysts at the time estimated that with leverage, Blackstone's cash-on-cash return could run around 12% a year for holding a deed. Both sides walked away claiming victory, and both were arguably right. But step back, because this is the reveal that reframes the whole building. A modern strip casino is barely a casino. 2/3 of its money isn't gambling. And now you can go one further. The modern casino company is barely even a property owner. The Bellagio, the postcard of Las Vegas, is a brand, a gaming license, and an operating team standing on rented land. So let's end the way these questions should end. What happens if it's you running it? Say you're MGM, and the Bellagio is yours to operate for 1 year. In a good year, the math is beautiful. Hundreds of millions in operating income flow in from rooms, tables, restaurants, and that theater that hasn't had an empty night in a quarter century. You pay your rent, your thousands of employees, your $10,000 a day water bill, and you keep everything above it. This is the good version, and it's why the deal made sense. But notice what changed the day the deed transferred. The old casino equation, the one that built this city, was guaranteed revenue against unguaranteed everything else. The house edge promised the top line. Only the costs could kill you. The Bellagio now runs that trade in reverse. Unguaranteed revenue against guaranteed rent. The lease doesn't care if Vegas has a bad year. The 2% escalator doesn't pause when visitor numbers fall. The property taxes on somebody else's building arrive on schedule whether the rooms are full or empty. In a boom, the tenant prints money. In a drought, the tenant pays first and profits never. And Las Vegas does have droughts. Visitor numbers fall, room rates wobble, conventions cancel, and none of it moves the rent a single dollar. Every fixed cost in this building, the lease, the taxes, the insurance, the thousands of paychecks, lines up on one side of the ledger and waits, while the revenue side answers to the economy, to airfares, to whether America feels like taking a trip this year. That is the modern Bellagio, the most reliable money machine on the strip, bolted to the most unforgiving fixed cost in the building. And the margin between those two facts is the entire business. So tonight, like every night, the fountains will fire on schedule. A crowd will pack the sidewalk, phones up, watching a $40 million machine perform for free. Almost nobody standing there will know what they're actually looking at. Water from a demolished casino's golf course well, launched by a tenant over a lake owned by a New York investment firm, choreographed to pull a few thousand more people past a cash vault the size of a small bank. The house always wins. That part is still true. But at the Bellagio, the house pays rent first. By 2018, the fountains had already performed more than 240,000 shows, and the count has only climbed since, every 15 to 30 minutes, through heat waves and recessions and ownership changes the crowd never noticed. Steve Wynn is long gone, forced out of the industry he built. MGM is a tenant in its own masterpiece. Blackstone holds the deed from an office 3 time zones away, and the water doesn't care about any of it. It fires on schedule, 460 feet, free of charge. The most photographed thing in Las Vegas makes no money at all. It just makes everything else possible. So here's my question for you. If you were MGM, would you have sold the building, take the $4 billion, or keep the deed? Tell me in the comments, because the answer says a lot about how you think about money. And if you want to know why the company that pays that rent is now raising prices into an emptier Las Vegas, that video is right here.